Hey friends, Mike here. I'm back with another edition of What the Heck is Going On with My Website, the product analytics experience. Since last we talked, it's been about 2 weeks, and I did a couple of things on my site. So first, if you go way back, I was debugging a problem with signups on my site, which we seem to have gotten past by doing a couple of things. I changed my site over to Resend for sending emails. I revamped the form that I use to get people to sign up, and in the last video, I added in A/B testing for my form. The idea behind A/B testing was to be able to look at 2 or 3 variants of the newsletter sign-up call to action to see what worked best for people. Basically, to see if I could find the design of a call to action that would make people sign up more reliably. And in the past couple of weeks, I'm happy to say that I've learned something. Okay, here's the thing. It's been a busy couple of weeks, and I've had less time to spend on this than I would like to, but I was also sort of intentionally letting this thing roll so that I could collect data. And let me show you what I found. All right, jumping into PostHog, this is my production environment where I've been running this experiment for the past couple of weeks. You can see here it was created 14 days ago, and it's been running for 13 days, so just about 2 weeks. This was the period in which I was hoping to collect enough information to make a really good decision on what to do next. And as you may be able to tell, I don't think we're quite there yet, so let's take a look. Jumping inside, the first thing we see here is that the significance of the result here is not significant. In other words, I haven't collected enough information to make a decision that is informed on something that's more likely than random chance. That's not a great sign given that this has been running for 2 weeks. And if we look below, we can see something kind of funny happen. So first of all, it does look like the simple implementation is going to have the best win probability, and the conversion rate for this has been about 3%, which is not too bad, as compared to the control, which is a little less than 1%, and the hero has converted none, which is a little bit disappointing. Looking a little further down on the page, this is called the funnel. This shows what I'm expecting to see to track a conversion, to track the success of this thing. So on the left here is that this feature flag was called, meaning at some point a page was rendered, PostHog's feature flag made a decision on what to show on the page. And the second column here, number 2, is newsletter subscribed. This is the event that fires when someone clicks the button to subscribe to the newsletter on my site. But already here, I can see something that's a little weird. I'm expecting to see a lot more people coming through here. Based on the traffic that my site gets, I'm expecting to see way more than 410 people. Something like 1,000 to 4,000 people a week should be going through this thing. Given that it's been 2 weeks, I would expect this to be somewhere between, let's say, 1,000 and 3,000 people. So let's see if we can chase this down and figure out what's going on here. This video and series is sponsored by PostHog. I was super happy when the PostHog gang reached out to me about sponsoring some videos because this is something I really care about. I love building products and I love making things better. And PostHog is a really fantastic suite of tools that can help you make your software better. Their free tier is super generous. It's something I use day to day in my work, and I wouldn't recommend it to you if I didn't feel that way. If you're interested in trying PostHog, click the link in the description below. It'll tell them that I sent you, and it helps me out a great deal. Thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of the video. In this tab, I've gone into PostHog's product analytics section, and I've put together a graph based on data that I've already collected, which I think tells a better story here. So let's start by taking a look at the 3 things I've added here. First, series A is the feature flag being called. Quite literally, what this should be is the amount of times that I've asked PostHog to give me a decision based on the feature flag that I've set. And actually, I can do one better here and add a filter and set this to feature flag. And it should give me a nice autocomplete of the only feature flag I have on my site. So to be even more clear, this is calling the feature flag for newsletter banner treatments. And I can rename this. I can say newsletter banner treatments feature flag called. Great. Rename this series. And the next series below is newsletter views. What this is people who have visited a page where the current URL contains mikebyfulco.com/newsletter. That means they've read one of the newsletters on my site. And then the final one here is post views. And this is people who've gone to mikebyfulco.com/posts. So just to recap, I have 2 different types of content on my site. My newsletter, Tiny Improvements, goes out every week. Jump into the description and subscribe. This is where I share stories and lessons to founders who are interested in building products based on my experience building a startup. The other type of articles on my site I call posts. These are technical tutorials on React and Tailwind and TypeScript and Ruby on Rails and things like that. What I'm expecting to see here is that this total count of feature flag calls should be roughly the sum of newsletter views plus post views. There are definitely other pages on my site which don't fall into these 2 buckets, but these 2 types of pages are the majority of things on my site. That's where people are, other than maybe my homepage and a couple of about me pages and contact pages, things like that. So let's take a look below at the graph, and immediately I think something should stand out to you. Let's look at the colors of this graph. The top line here, post views, is in green. The Second line, newsletter banner treatments, is the feature flag call. And the third line in purple, newsletter views, is the number of people who viewed a newsletter page that day. Right now I'm looking at the last month grouped by day. I can go back to 90 days. And this is actually really interesting because we can see when the feature flag started being called. And so that's literally here, August 18th of 2024, when this ticks up from, well, I guess it'd be the 17th, from 0 to something, right? So we started calling the feature flag there. I'm going to go back a month because that's enough to cover all of this stuff. This is where things go awry. So these two lines are trending with each other almost in lockstep. So that is newsletter page views and feature flag calls. And what this is indicating to me is that on my post page, I'm not getting any views of this feature flag call. So in my implementation, I forgot to put this A/B test in on the page that gets the most views on my site, which is such a flub. And I'm really kind of irritated about it. I came into the analytics today really excited to get a result for this. I was actually hoping not to look at my results until today and to get kind of a live reaction. My first recording was a disaster, but we uncovered a bug. This is great. So this is product analytics doing its thing. I've found a problem on my site right now, which is that my post pages aren't doing this A/B test, which is something I want to do. So let's go fix that and get that implemented. All right, just a quick review of the two types of posts on my site. On these newsletter pages, this is what you'll see. This is the newsletter I published last week. It's kind of a cheeky post about typography and fonts, where I talked a little bit about what a font is and what goes into all that. It's super cool. I think you should give it a read if you're interested. But if we scroll down to the bottom of this page, this is the banner that we swap out based on the post hog feature flag. It's working great. These banners are coming and going as expected. People are clicking them and sometimes converting. I've been doing my best to not click through this and sully the data along the way. Let's go back one. And if we go to the latest posts, this is my latest full tutorial post, which is actually just an embedded version of one of the recent videos I posted on my YouTube channel. If I scroll down to this, I see this newsletter form, which looks great. And in fact, I did check this as I was putting up the site the last time around. What I thought I was seeing here was the A/B test showing me this version of the form. If I refresh this, or if I load it on my phone or in an incognito tab, it's always going to be this form. And the reason is I'm straight up just not using the A/B test component here. So turns out that's an easy fix. Let's take a look. All right. You may recall that this is the component where we actually do the A/B testing. This is the newsletter signup component. It loads a post hog feature flag. It knows about the different options that we have for the feature flag, and it displays one of three components. Depending on what the feature flag comes back as. That's all this is doing. If we go back to the slug page for my newsletter, we can look at what each individual newsletter page looks like. There's a bunch of stuff on here to render the actual newsletter itself and the SEO stuff surrounding it. And if I go to the very bottom of this page, we will see newsletter sign up here. This is the thing that renders that A/B test component. And that is imported from newsletter sign up in components/newsletter sign up. Lovely. That's exactly what we expect to see. Now, here's the fun part. If I open up the other slug.tsx, which is source pages posts, so this is for the long form tutorials on my site. If I come in here at the very bottom of this guy, we will also see newsletter sign up. Amazing. That's great. But when I go to the very top, import newsletter sign up is coming from components, newsletter sign up, and then newsletter banner fancy. So I've imported the wrong thing. This page has not been collecting data for me because I was using one of the newsletter A/B test options rather than the A/B test component itself. That is unfortunate, and I think I'm going to have to essentially start from scratch with collecting data on this, but we should be also collecting a ton more data once this deploys. So given that we're resetting the test, I'm also going to do something else, which I think is probably a good change too. You may have actually already noticed this, but in this index.tsx, the newsletter signup, I actually swapped out the component that was doing worst in the test over the past 2 weeks for something else. So we had a hero thing here, which was the big wide banner. It had a black background. It was pretty shouty and loud, and it looked very different from everything else on the page. Instead of that, I'm using this detailed component as a third option. I spun up this third component based on some feedback from friends and from kind responses I got both on YouTube and on Threads. And what I'm hoping to do is test these three against each other to identify which one is the best. Let's take a look at the new one so we can see what that option looks like too. This is the third option. What I've done here is I've tried to distill things into useful information. I personally think there's way too much text here, and I'd really like to dial this back, but apparently this is the sort of thing that can work well, and if it wins, it wins. We've got a nice title here. We've got a call to action, some urgency by showcasing when the next dispatch goes out, and some topic tags here to give people an idea of what's going on. I may shuffle around some of this stuff, but for now, more or less, this is the way it's going to look. We have three options now. They're all relatively simple. They all should blend into the page a little better than they did in the past. And we're going to try and A/B test these against each other. What I'm going to do is open this up as a pull request, deploy this to my site, and reset the data on my A/B test on PostHog. And as frustrating as it might be, it is actually really easy to reset that data. I'm going to hit reset. PostHog is going to give me a nice warning that all the data collected so far will be discarded and the experiment will go back into draft mode. And to be perfectly honest with you, that seems like a good decision given what I know now. Let's hit confirm. We'll reset everything. This is back to square one. As soon as I publish this pull request, I'm going to come back and start collecting data again. So we'll start this thing up. We'll collect for another week or so until I start filming the next video. And we'll make some decisions based on what we learned between here and there. I'm kicking myself because I keep forgetting to mention that my site is also open source and fully available for you to look at if you want to go see the code that comprises all this stuff. The changes that I've talked about in this video will be in a pull request, and that pull request will be linked to in the description of this video. You're more than welcome to go check that out, and you can dive in and see how I maintain my site week to week with pull requests to myself. I'm really the only maintainer of this thing, generally speaking, and I think it's an interesting way to share what I'm doing. There's nothing really secretive to what I'm building, and it's an interesting way to see how something grows over time. Feel free to check it out and let me know what you think. One of the really important things about what we do is falling in love with the process of building and rebuilding things. And that's exactly what I've done here in this series of videos. I definitely didn't intend to start out with this particular step in mind, but we're going to take this and we're going to jump forward from here. So I'm going to deploy this thing. I'm going to test a little bit. I'm going to collect some more data and we'll do exactly this again. Knowing a little more data the next time around, we'll make better decisions on what to do. And that's the best you can do sometimes. Ideally, if you're working on a startup or a product and it's your only thing, you should be paying way more close attention than I was to this over the last 2 weeks. But hey, look, this is not my full-time job. This is my passion project. This is teaching and learning and one of those things that I love doing alongside work, but my job takes up a ton of time. And this is the thing that is the labor of love that I fit in around the edges. So, hey, look, I'm glad you're here. I'm looking forward to learning together. In a week or so, we'll look at this again. And in the meantime, I'd love to know what you think so far. Have you learned something? Is this something you're trying for yourself? If you have questions about PostHog, feel free to drop them in the comments below. I'm happy to try and answer them. And if I can't, I can find smarter people than me who have the answers. So until next time, my name is Mike Bifulco. This is Tiny Improvements. Thank you so much for hanging out. It's been a pleasure as always. Be excellent to each other, and I'll catch you soon. See ya.